Welcome to Valley Viewpoint. I'm Roger Johnson. My guest is Mike Denny. He's a naturalist and writer at the UB for wonderful aspects of creation. And I'm looking at the UB called The Unexpected Discovery in the Area. And he is the author of these articles in the panorama section of the paper. And welcome, Mike, to Valley Viewpoint.
Thank you very much.
And we're going to be talking a lot more about the secret life of the forest with you as well. And yet I just had to make sure this was a priority in my reading. And that's probably because I've been following you on the Secret Life of the Forest series. And it's just kind of synergistic when we think about what you're doing. What do you title yourself?
I teach. I'm a naturalist. I write a column for the UB. Yeah. I've co-authored books, write lots of articles. So I guess a writer, naturalist, it works.
And Mike, you have certainly done a lot of writing for The Secret Life of the Forest. Mm-hmm. And you're the narrator and writer, and I guess the blaze the trail guy for pointing out where your videographer, Daniel, should point the camera.
Well, Daniel was very, very accommodating. And so we would go up and we would have specific species we were looking for at that time of year. And if we came across something unexpected, Daniel always accommodated me and started photographing what it is that we just suddenly discovered, which was just about every trip we found 2 or 3 species that we had not expected.
Well, there's got to be a lot of stories that we're going to let you share as you reminisce on this experience of these 13 episodes. That is the plan.
Correct.
And we'll talk about the experience of the community, how you've been into a different medium, and the television medium, from being the writer and that sort of thing, the contrasts and comparisons.
Right.
But talk to us about the cattle egret that I was reading about.
Well, this was a column that I wrote for the Walla Walla Union Bulletin, and this is my 84th Wildfires column for the UB. Wow. And this was a bird that my wife and I found, Mary Lynn and I found last Saturday. And it was in a little pasture with 4 or 5 cattle. And we had not seen one for a good 10 years in Walla Walla County. And we don't know why that is, because they're still breeding down at Bear River National Wildlife Refuge in Utah. And there's a few down at Malheur Refuge. But we suspect the birds that come into Southeast Washington actually come from populations down in the southwestern United States, in Arizona, New Mexico, and West Texas. But again, we have no proof, but that's our nearest large population. So we think in the fall, after they have bred, they do what's called post-breeding wandering. And these are birds, sometimes in small flocks, sometimes singly, that come north. And so they appear, and you never know where they're going to pop up. So in November, early December, we always go looking for cattle egrets. Well, the last 10 years, we've not found any until last weekend. And then this
no
one
wonder that prompted you to get on the computer and write another article about the appearance after 10 years.
Right.
That must seem like forever for you.
Well, there's lots of other species that have popped up during that period. But what's interesting about them is that they're not native to North America. They self-introduced from Africa. And I grew up in Southeast Africa, and this is a species that I grew up with. And it was like, hey, all of a sudden, here's these African cattle egrets. The first one I saw in the United States was at Malheur Refuge in 1974. And that was a real eye-opener that there was a cattle egret at Malheur down in southeast Oregon on the north shore of Malheur Lake.
Well, it just as you say, it causes you to reminisce about your childhood.
Absolutely.
And your international exposure,
Yeah.
growing up in Africa, and then seeing this same bird coming out to greet you after
Right.
10 years.
Right. So
and-
it's always fun to see them.
And I noticed that formal name is cattle.
Right.
And you have a wonderful picture with a Angus right
Right.
behind as the backdrop.
That's right.
for
That's
this
what
bird.
accentuated the white of the bird.
Oh, it sure did. It's a
Yeah.
beautiful photo.
Yeah.
And tell me about what they eat.
Well, they eat everything from any type of insect to lizards to mice, whatever they can catch right there.
Do you find that the cattle then attract these insects?
Well, the cattle actually disturb those insects, so they start moving to get out of the cow's way, and when they do that, the egret's right there.
Oh.
And egrets have learned to perch on cattle, and as cows move across the pasture, they're watching for mice or lizards or insects that they can drop down on and grab.
And so they use the cow or the cattle for
Yep.
the vantage point, as well as perhaps not a decoy. What
tool.
A tool.
They're actually used as a tool because they are the ones that cause the motion of these other animals, and that's when the egret gets
And
it.
these other animals think, well, that's just a cow there.
Yeah, get
Or,
out of
you
the
know,
way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, or say, oh, here's a giant cow, let's get out of the way
Yeah.
before we get squished. But then they don't see this cattle egret nearby
Right.
watching with eyes on top of the cow.
Right. So that's a bird I used to see perched on hippos and elephants in Africa. And they would feed in among all the African cows, the zebu cattle. And so I was very accustomed to them. And so it's fun to see them. It is.
Well, it was a joy to read that article, and thank you for giving us these 80 plus articles, sensitizing us. And now you've sensitized the television audience in big ways about the forest. And I hear that there are other people that are serious about the Blue Mountains. Something about a trail?
Oh, this program, the series The Secret Life of the Forest, is an outgrowth of a general movement that has occurred since 2014 into 14, early 15, started by the Community Council study on outdoor recreation and what's going on in this area. And it has involved all the cities, counties, ports, all of the health departments, because the goal is to get people outside and moving. And so that's why a trail system is in the process. I would like to let you know that the cities of Waitsburg and Dayton, thank you to Jenny Dickinson in Dayton, they are now going to have a trail that's going to run from Waitsburg to Dayton.
Oh.
And eventually there will be a trail running through Walla Walla, down through Milton Freewater, up through southeast Walla Walla to Dayton and Waitsburg from Wallula Gap. And then there'll be a trail, anyway, it'll be 82-mile trail. And eventually there's going to be a trail, I believe, that will come up through the spine of the Blue Mountains. And that will be just like the Pacific Crest Trail, only it'll be called the Blue Mountain Trail. And it is a group down in Redmond and Prineville are starting to work towards that. And then there's the Desert Trail Association down in Nevada that would like to connect from the Great Basin to the Blue Mountain Trail system. So that will continue on up, and you could eventually, conceivably, when this is all done, you could hike from Las Vegas, Nevada to Missoula, Montana.
Oh my.
So it will be a tremendous boon and to this region, and it will be for tourism, for environment, for education, and general economics and health. So all the health departments, the ones from Umatilla County, Walla Walla, and Columbia County have already been meeting. I sit in on their meetings, and we are talking about getting people outside, away from the screen, away from the phone, and get out there and get exercising, because we know that 33% of the children in these counties are obese. We know that 60% of the adults are obese. We know that the incidence of diabetes has exploded. Incidence of heart disease has exploded because individuals are lethargic and they're not getting up and moving. And so the whole purpose of this outdoor rec study by the Community Council and the citizens that were on that board was to get this done and to get the report out. And it is now out, and it can be found online under Community Council, and all of our reports are there. And the outdoor rec report is there, and I would urge people to take a look at it, because it is vitally important for a pleasant future in this valley.
Well, Mike, I'm just very impressed. I had no idea you'd be sitting on a health council.
No, yeah.
Would you mind speaking maybe after the break about why they might be interested in you? Would you mind touching base on that after the break?
Sure.
Okay. And why you're possibly not only a naturalist when it comes to the outdoors, it sounds like, but a naturalist that when it comes to the inside of us too. It sounds like you're representing the health department here on this interview.
I nowhere near represent them.
But I mean, you're at least speaking
right.
as the. I had no idea that we would be talking on health when we started this interview, because I didn't realize that the trail system would be so health focused.
It is.
They were trying to get people encouraged to get outdoors.
So Megan DeBolt at the Walla Walla Public Health has been very, very involved with the Community Council and very involved in this trail and outdoor rec study. And that's precisely so that we can get folks out and exercising. And a lot of people say, well, they don't want to walk, or some people are in such dire straits that they can't get out and move because of choices they've made.
Yes.
And so we want people to make the right choice and get
before,
out.
So they still have their choices.
That's right.
Well, that's a beautiful way to end this first segment. We'll be right back with Mike Denny talking about providing many choices for you here in the Valley and the wonderful experiences of the secret life of the forest. We'll be right back. Welcome back with Mike Denny. We're talking about the potential of major trail expansion to encourage all of us with the choices that we have to get out in the outdoors and to, I guess, retain those choices, Mike, by getting out in the outdoors.
Right.
And what is a trail like? You know, we're talking about trails. I suppose in this rather strongly developing area of this, we need trails to give people permission, because you just can't go where you want to go unless it's a bona fide trail. Is that kind of the permission? We don't want to trespass, and so is that why trails are so important nowadays?
Well, trails are vitally important because they will take folks that want to bicycle, folks that want to hike, folks that want to horseback ride, and so these trails will accommodate those. Oh, and trails are super important, especially the trail system we are looking at here. Our trail plan is completed. It was done by Andrea Wachmuller-Barringer at the municipal agency, at the municipal planning agency, and she did an incredible job mapping and creating and informing the general population of what was going on. And as a result of her planning and what she put together, we now have a trail planned system. And that is enabling this county and Columbia County and Umatilla to go for grants because they have a beautiful plan. And prior to that, it would have been virtually impossible to get grant monies to go forward with this trail. And now we have that plan, and Umatilla and Columbia County got grants already as a result of this plan that's in place. And the plan is so excellent that it has been presented at 4 conferences in Washington State. We have done all kinds of reports and all kinds of visitations with legislators and all kinds of people. That
I would think that would include the private landowners where the trail would go through.
The trail's not going on any private land unless that private landowner comes forward. This is all on public right-of-way.
This is public right-of-way.
So it's not infringing on private lands at all. And so folks will be able to bicycle, walk, whatever they want. It is all non-motorized. You cannot go on it with a motorcycle or an ATV. And this is to get people out and exercising. So it's outstanding. So how this connects to the secret life of the forest is that while we were doing this study, Dan and I met when you invited me to come out and do
into our own backyard, the backyard of Walla Walla.
Right, walk through the Art Rempel Natural Area.
Yes.
And that's when Dan and I started talking, and we said, hey, let's do this. Because in my mind, I already was in the midst of studying
this trail system. Fascinating. I had no idea about this.
Hey, this just fits hand in glove. Let's do it. So I was very fortunate. My mom had invested wisely.
Yes.
And so when she passed 3 years ago, I had the funds, and I got to thinking, what could I do to impact the greatest number of people in this community? And so that's when I realized, let's do The Secret Life of the Forest. Hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people will see it, if not thousands.
Yes.
And from there we can cultivate an interest in getting outside and exploring and discovering. And so, unfortunately, in this nation, those things that we don't know anything about or have any appreciation of, we don't protect. And I am seeing a real separation between the outdoors and our human population. And I'm getting really, really concerned about that. So when Dan and I went out and started filming this, I thought, man, this is a great tool, because what it's going to do is cause people to become interested in these blue mountains that are right behind us. And they are such a treasure, and they are so valuable. And unfortunately, in the past, we've treated it like a cornfield. We think we can go in, cut trees down, plant new trees, and it's not that simple. It is a very, very complicated system. And that's what Dan and I were shooting for, was to express that complication, and that this is a system that is not easily overlooked or even understood. And we today are still discovering incredible new things about the animals and the system that's in place up here.
Speaking of animals, we're approaching the larger animals in The Secret Life of the Forest as it unfolds. You've done a wonderful section on rafters that you're involved with. And I hear there's been a recent sighting of a cougar by your buddy.
Yeah, Dan saw a cougar this morning. Had it go right in front of him, so that's pretty cool.
Did you get a specific sighting where Daniel was?
I would never share where those are. Okay. There's too many folks that don't have a great appreciation of cougars or their value that they present to the natural system.
Oh my, and you're being serious
on
that. So it's not that you don't know where this cougar was, you know where Daniel was, but you will not say that because the system is that delicate.
Yeah, and
You
they-
respect it so much.
They are so vital to balance in the natural world. Yeah.
In other words, there's just too many deer out there, huh?
Well, there's a slight overpopulation. Yeah. I wouldn't say it was a huge overpopulation, but we have good numbers.
Yeah.
And
They're
so-
not threatened by
No.
any means.
No.
Now, what about the numbers of cougars? How are they in this balancing of what you would understand as the system?
Well, cougars, the way it works with cougars is that the big adult males hold the territories. And those big adult males have some very important services they provide to the system. And one of those is that they maintain and manage the population of young cougars that are born each year.
Oh.
So if a yearling cougar wanders into their territory, they kill it.
Ooh.
It's that simple. And so they maintain the balance in the cougar population. And that's why you never go out and blast all the adult male cougars out of their territory.
Oh my.
Then you have an overpopulation of young cougars, and
they don't know the system.
they don't balance it. And so you want those mature adult male cougars in those territories, because that's how you balance a cougar population. And so every human being that's been attacked in the Northwest has been attacked by yearling cougars, except for one event. And that was an old cougar that was in poor physical shape. So humans do get attacked, usually people of, unfortunately, small stature and very small bodied, and they're running, jogging usually, and they get chased. Because in the cougar, when they see someone running, it's fight or flight, and they go after them because it's an opportunity. And they recognize it. And humans are very easy for a big cougar to kill. And an 80-pound, 100-pound yearling cougar is all muscle. They are a powerful animal.
So yes, like.
So when I worked in the woods for the U.S. Forest Service, I never feared big adult cougars. I was never afraid. And I saw them every season. But the yearlings were the ones that you have to really be careful of. So I carried a big mace, military mace in my pack. And if I was going to be challenged by a yearling cougar, he was going to get sprayed.
And are those available?
No.
Those
That
military
was-
type? That
no.
was because you
That
worked
was
for the
through
forest.
Forest Service, yeah.
So if for in other words, on this trail that we're talking about, and if people want to jog on this trail,
I wouldn't worry about them.
you wouldn't worry.
No,
Yeah.
we're not in their country at all.
Okay.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't worry. There's no predator that I would worry about on those trails.
It's expensive to put a trail in, isn't
It
it?
is very expensive, and that's why we did
grants.
this big plan, and that's why we're going after grants to do sections of it at a time. So if you were to go out and spend the millions and millions to do the whole thing at once, it would be prohibitive. But if you do it over a planned schedule, you can get it done.
Well, Mike, we just have a minute or so.
Can I say something?
Absolutely.
I
absolutely.
would just really like to thank Dan for his incredible ease to work with. And he has become a good friend, and he's tremendously skilled as a photographer and editor. And The Secret Life of the Forest wouldn't be what it is without his skills. And so I just really appreciate that.
Well, it's nice to be able to talk about Dan since he's not here.
Yeah.
And that's a wonderful affirmation.
Yeah.
And how many hours do you think has been put together?
Oh,
just
my.
Incredible.
Well, we went out once a week, so that's 4 times a month.
Yeah.
For 14 months.
And
So
that's
hundreds and hundreds of hours just in the field, and probably hundreds and hundreds of hours editing and narrating.
I like your narrations.
Oh,
Very nicely, and the writing is wonderful. And we'll look forward to the unveiling of the next ones. And again, I might just say, since I've been working on this myself, the airings of The Secret of Life of the Forest are on Sunday evening at 7, Wednesday night at 5, Thursday morning at 9:30, and Saturday night at 8. I've been seeing it. Is that pretty good? I know those.
you did it.
Thank you, Mike, so much for joining us on Valley Viewpoint and unveiling some new aspects about our community and the options that we have for us.
Our privilege.
Thank you for joining us on Valley Viewpoint. I'm Roger Johnson.